My name is Hartley Dagador, and you're listening to Wake Up with Wonder podcast, where my daddy shares with you the gift of wonder.
Beautiful. Thank you so much to my beautiful daughter Hartley for that lovely introduction. So before we get started today, I wanted to let you know this episode is 100% sponsored by the Wonders and Friends community. The Wonders and Friends community is our closed VIP paid community that we host over on Discord. There is also a free version if you want to experience the free version. But basically, you would get access to myself, you would get monthly coaching calls, you would get daily positivity, daily perspective shifts, which do tie into today's episode. And then on top of that, you get accountability, and you get to be in a group of positive, like-minded, supportive individuals. So if you want to learn more about the Wonders and Friends community, you can head over to our website, bit.ly.com/Wanderers_friends. And this is the Wake Up with Wonder podcast. I am your host, Jason B. Godoy. Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. If you are a returning listener, I appreciate your support. I hear you, I see you, and I love you. If I have not yet connected with you, if you don't feel that I hear you or see you, please reach out. Please send me an email, jasongodoy1@gmail.com, or just reach out on the Facebook page, Wake Up with Wonder, and let's connect. Let's talk about your wonders. Let's see how we can put these wonders into action. If you're a new listener, I am happy to have you here. You are definitely brought here for a reason, and what this podcast is all about. First off, it follows a code. We are absolutely truthful with the truth that we know in that moment, and from there, we are acute with our feelings, with our the facts that we share, with the details, because those acute feelings, facts, and details are going to lead us to applications, whether it's an application for your life, whether it's an applicable lesson for a universal applicable lesson for everybody's life. We seek application because the application is going to lead us to answers, and the answers are the results, are those new truths that we seek in life, and that is the true journey of enlightenment. So this podcast, Wake Up with Wonder, is going to start with a wonder, something that I've personally experienced, and from the wonder, it's going to go into a new perspective, a perspective shift, and the perspective shift is going to allow us to see the possibility of more, allow us to take action, and then from taking action is when we begin the process of expansion. So as I said, today's episode is going to be a positive episode. We're going to title it, I believe it's episode 42, 43, I'm losing track here. We're going to title it The Wonder of PQ. So who knows what PQ is? You probably don't know what PQ is. What PQ is positive intelligence, or it can be also referred to as positive quotient. It's our ability to utilize our wise mind, our sage mind, to utilize our positive mental muscles in opposing to using our negative mind, using our saboteur, our sabotaging mind, listening to those negative voices in our head, and relying on our negative mental muscles. So that is what positive intelligence is. An interesting, I guess this is a fact for me, an interesting fact for me. Have you ever practiced something and done something for a certain amount of time, not knowing that this is what you were actually doing? And then once you realize it, like the light bulb goes off and you realize, dang, if I had been experiencing it from this frame of what it actually is opposed to what I had been doing, then I wonder how much more progress, I wonder how much more impactful or effective it would have been in my life. So that's where I'm at right now with this positive intelligence, this concept of PQ. To bring it full circle, 18 months ago when my personal development, my personal growth journey started, I realized that my EQ, my emotional intelligence, was lacking, and I realized that that is a muscle that can be strengthened, that can be trained. And 18 months ago when I started, I was focusing on strengthening my emotional intelligence, my EQ muscle, not even realizing it. I was going through IQ, trying to strengthen and trying to improve my EQ. And then once I discovered the book Emotional Intelligence, by Daniel Golden, I was able to reframe, to refocus, and had much more impact and a much more desired effect on my emotional intelligence journey. And now, 18 months later, we're in the same exact boat. I'm in the same exact boat with this concept of positive intelligence. So I've been trying to be more productive. I've been trying to procrastinate less. I've been trying to listen to the positive, that internal voice of certainty within my being. And in doing so, I've had to quiet the negative voices. I've had to calm the negative voices. And I've been approaching this from the frame of emotional intelligence, the frame of EQ, thinking that those negative voices were just negative emotions. But it turns out that there is IQ, there is EQ, and there is PQ. So now that I'm aware, now that I'm conscious of positive intelligence, of PQ, I'm able to reframe and reevaluate how I am tackling these negative voices inside of my head, and I believe I'm going to have more impact, and it's going to lead me to more of the desired effect now that I know what I'm actually working with. So with that being said, let me start off with a quote. I really found this quote relative to what we're going to be talking about today. Pretty simple. The positive thinker sees the invisible, feels the intangible, and achieves the impossible. Unknown. So basically, positive intelligence is actually scientifically proven to be a predictor of how happy we can be and how happy we can perform relative to our human potential, our specific human potential. It's the backbone of our mental fitness. And like I said, it's a measure of our wise mind, our positive mind versus our negative mind, our saboteur mind. If we are intentional with our positive intelligence, it can lead us to be more alert. It can lead us to be calm. It can lead us to have a better balanced being, to be more aware of our senses, and to have just overall a more creative mindset because we're able to see different perspectives, different possibilities. So positive intelligence can be trained, it can be improved upon, and there's 3 ways of doing it. But before I get into the 3 ways of improving and training our positive intelligence, which I will cover in this episode, that's where the value is, I wanted to talk about the different saboteurs that we have in our brain. So there are 10 types of saboteurs, and there is a website, positiveintelligence.com/assessments. I will put the link in the show notes. But these assessments, there's 2 assessments. There's one where you can see the percentage of your brain that you're using roughly, that is your sage mind, opposed to the percentage of your brain that you're using that is your saboteur mind. So you can see if you already have a saboteur or a sage mindset. In doing this, I learned that I am 58% sage mindset, which is good. Definitely want to be higher, but I wonder where I would have been a couple months ago. I probably would have been like 38% sage. And the second assessment is to figure out which of the 10 saboteurs is your primary saboteur, your primary mode of self-sabotage, that primary negative voice in your head that we have to work so hard to quiet. So when I took that assessment of the primary saboteur, I learned, which I believe this is similar for most people, the judge in myself is the primary mode of saboteur. So when I have a negative interaction with an individual, when I don't meet the standards that I set for myself, it's easy to become very critical of my performance. It's easy to become very critical and judgmental of the other person's negative qualities, of their shortcomings, of the fact that they didn't do what they said they were going to do. And because we can become so judgmental and so critical, that feeds into our judge saboteur, which the judge saboteur is going to activate the other voices, the other negative thoughts in our mind, such as, for me, the stickler. So the stickler is when I start being critical of myself and judging myself, then I get very, very fine about the stuff that I'm not doing, very, very critical. So for example, if I don't work out and I start judging myself for missing a workout, then I'll go right into being very critical of my diet for that day. And then once I become very critical of my diet for that day, then I can even go further and become a stickler and critical of my body image, which is going to go back to negative thoughts and feed into this vicious cycle. Another one is the controller. So when you become judgmental of someone, our ego is attacked. We can feel as if they may be doing something to harm us. They may be doing something because they don't care about us, or maybe just that we are losing control, which is why we're becoming judgmental. And then the controller saboteur kicks in. And this controller saboteur is a need to force things to go your way, is a need to speed up the processes of certain things. And that is another saboteur where I have scored high. Another one is the victim saboteur. So the victim it's easy to get in that mindset of poor me, why is this happening to me? No one else is experiencing this. I'm the only one in the world. And that's the victim saboteur. Once we start judging our circumstances, if we judge long enough, then we just judge ourselves right into a victim mentality, a victim mindset. So those are the three main saboteurs for me, but I'll just share with you all of the saboteurs so that you're aware of them. So there's the judge, the one that causes us to find fault within ourselves, within others. There's the stickler. There is the pleaser. So there is a people pleaser saboteur. There is the hyperachiever, the one that can never calm down, the one that needs to just keep achieving, keep becoming more and more successful, that needs constant validation. The victim, which we've already talked about. There's the hyper rational saboteur, the very analytical, very rational mind that sometimes doesn't let us see the big picture, doesn't let us see outside of the box. There is the hyper vigilant saboteur, the saboteur that is always on guard, that can't put their guard down, that is afraid people have it out for them, is afraid the world is going to stab them in the back, literally and metaphorically. The restless saboteur, the one that can't be grounded, the one that can't experience calmness, that can't experience peace. And that was me in the past year or so. I've definitely worked on that one. The controller, which we talked about, and then the avoider. I think the avoider is a huge one for a lot of people. We avoid conflict, we avoid tough discussions, we avoid doing the fucking work, we avoid tons of shit. So those are the 10 saboteurs, and opposing the 10 saboteurs is, like I said, the sage mind. Now the sage mind actually has, in a sense, 5 superpowers that come out of it, because the sage is deeper than us, the sage is wiser than us, the sage is our powerful mind. And in order to make our sage stronger, to shift into that, I will share that coming up, but I wanted to talk about these 5 qualities, the 5 superpowers of the sage mind, the wise mind. So the first one is exploring, just being able to explore circumstances, situations with true curiosity, that childlike curiosity of wonder, and having an open mindset. The second superpower of the sage mind is empathy, the ability to empathize with ourselves, to empathize with others, to bring compassion, to bring understanding to our circumstances, to our environment. Some people may not, if they're in their judgmental mind, they may not be able to empathize with themselves, and we can bring that empathy to them. Next is going to be the innovative mind. So innovation is key to advancement in business. It's key to advancement in life. Right now we're experiencing the coronavirus. We're experiencing global hate, global racism. And really, this is a time for innovation. This is a time to think outside of the box, to see the big picture, and to try and find new solutions to pre-existing problems. The fourth skill or superpower of this sage mind, this wise mind, is navigation. The ability to navigate, the ability to choose a path that best aligns with our deeper purpose, with our values, with our mission. And that navigate, to me, really is that voice of certainty. And the more I strengthen my sage mind, the louder that navigation compass appears to be for me at least. And then lastly is activation. So we all have that fight or flight response in our mind, and that ability to just be decisive, to take action without being stressed, without worrying about interferences, and without basically falling victim to our saboteurs once we begin to take this action. So now that you know about the positive mind, the wise, the sage mind, which has superpowers such as exploration, empathy, innovation, the ability to navigate circumstances, and then activation leading to action. And now that you know about the opposite, the saboteur mind, which starts off primarily as the judge, but also has other components such as the stickler, the people pleaser, the hypervigilant, the restless, the controller, the avoider personality, the hyperachiever personality, the victim personality, and the analytical or the hyper-rational personality. So now that you're aware of the negative side, the positive side of our mind, let's talk about 3 ways that we can improve, 3 ways that we can strengthen our PQ, and we can raise our ability to experience positivity. So first off, the very, very first thing you want to do is discover your primary saboteur. Once you're aware of your primary saboteur, like I said, for many it's the judge, but I recommend going to positiveintelligence.com/assessments. I'll put the link in the show notes, and taking the test for yourself to be certain of your primary saboteur. We can weaken it. Once we know about it, we can weaken it. Essentially, we're going to limit the voices, the thoughts, the impulses that are put out by this primary saboteur. Now, this primary saboteur, it's our survival mind. So because it's a survival mind, we're always going to have voices telling us that's not going to work, you can't do it, you're going to be judged. So for me as a podcaster, there's a lot of times where I record an episode, and before hitting publish, the saboteur mind kicks in. And the saboteur mind is actually what prevents me from hitting publish on some episodes. And the best way to weaken our saboteur mind is first, like I said, to be aware of the primary saboteur, and second, to acknowledge it. When we acknowledge the saboteur, when we bring it into the light, it literally gives it no power. So an example is the highly analytical mind. I call that analyzing Jason. So I call that anal Jason. So when I start becoming analytical, when I start thinking that my work isn't good enough, when I start thinking that I forgot something or people are going to judge me, then I just say, you know what, anal Jason, there you are. I see you, anal Jason. I hear you, anal Jason. I don't care what you think, anal Jason. So you want to acknowledge it. By acknowledging it, it removes the power. Another one would be the victim one. So at work, if I get an error, then it's easy to fall into a victim state and feel like they have it out for me, especially if you get multiple errors. And from there, I just have to take a step back and say, that's the victim, Jason. So stop being a victim. You're not a victim. You have no power in your victim mode. And just acknowledging it robs it of the power. A huge one that I acknowledge all the time is the judge. When you feel like you're judging someone, and you just acknowledge and say, hey, sorry for judging you in this circumstance. Sorry for judging you in this situation. You know what? I'm judging you right now. I don't want to be judging you. Let me just take a step back. Even with yourself, that literally strips all 10 saboteurs of their power. So finding out your primary saboteur, you can weaken it by acknowledging it, by calling it out, making it a game almost. I know it's not funny in society to have multiple personalities, but if you give these saboteurs, these different personalities names, these different voices names, it's easier to call them out. So I have anal Jason, I have victim Jason, my stickler, I call it that perfect Jason. I'm not perfect, so I definitely call that one out all the time. But giving these negative voices, negative thoughts names makes it easier to acknowledge them. Second is to strengthen your sage, to strengthen our wise mind, to connect deeper with that positive voice of certainty within ourselves. And this is done through the power of perspective, by trying to see different perspectives by seeing outside of the box. This is going to allow us to tap into the 5 superpowers of our brain. Here's 2 powerful questions that I use to tap into this power of perspective. Hopefully they help you. So 1, when we're sitting in a current situation, when we receive bad news, when we receive a challenge, when we face adversity, it's easy to think only in the moment, and I've done this a lot in the past, to think only in the moment, which is going to get us caught up in the saboteurs, in the negative thoughts, because we can't see all the good stuff that's going to come. We can't see the lesson that's going to come from this negative moment. So what I do when something negative happens, when I feel a saboteur coming on, I ask myself, who would I have to be as a man to experience this? Who would I have to be as a man to get from point A to point B? Who would I have to be as a man to experience that in 6 months, to experience that in 1 year? And if you're a woman listening to this, you could just simply say, what is the lesson I'm going to learn from this situation 1 year from now, 3 years from now? So by trying to see a situation 2 years out, 3 years out, 1 year out, it's going to allow us to see it as something positive, to see it as a learning experience, as a lesson to be had, as an opportunity for growth. So a huge example of this, I separated from my ex-wife in 2018. I was divorced in 2019. And in 2018, I could not see the lesson. I could not see the positive experience. But a few months after, I was able to start seeing into the future. I was able to start seeing what would happen as a result of the divorce. I was able to start learning the lessons and seeing positively going forward. And that only helped me. And I continue to do that now. So there's that. And the third way to strengthen your positive mind, to weaken that saboteur, to increase your positive intelligence, ultimately is the goal, is to do 100 plus daily, they're called PQ reps, positive quotient reps. So what essentially, it's super simple. I know 100 sounds like a lot. It's not really a lot. I've been doing this since I've been back at work now. So for almost 3 months, not even knowing this is what I was doing. And my challenge to you, the call to action is, 1, go take the positive intelligence assessment and figure out your primary saboteur, figure out if you're living in a sage mind or if you're living in a saboteur mind. But 2, my true call to action to you is to do this 100 plus daily positive intelligence reps, these PQ reps, to do them for 21 days. I'm challenging you to do them for 21 days straight. It's possible. All you're going to do all throughout your day, when you're working, when you're talking, when you're working out, whatever you're doing, you're going to take small mini 10-second breaks, and not even a break. You're just going to take a 10-second pause to become completely immersed and completely aware in one of your 5 senses. So for me, I'm an order filler during my day job, and I walk a lot. I walk like 10 plus miles a day. But as I'm walking from box to box, from row to row, I am conscious and mindful of any feeling, sensations in my body, in my legs, in my back. And let's say I'm walking and I notice that there is a soreness in my calf, like a tight pinch in my calf from having walked all day. When I get to my desired location, before I start filling my order and doing my work, I literally just stop, I pause, I take 2 deep breaths, just simple. And as I'm taking those deep breaths, I am switching my focus, my attention, my frontal primary cortex to that pain, that sensation in my body. And then on the next order, on the next fill, I do the same thing. And if there is no feeling to notice, no sensation to notice, then when I get to the box, I'll just put my finger on it and I will just breathe for 10 seconds and notice the sensation of breathing. Or sometimes if I'm not sure if I'm grabbing the right material, I have to check the part numbers. I will just stare intensely at the part number, stare intensely at the material for 10 seconds, just focusing all of my attention there for 10 seconds. So our 5 primary senses are sight, our touch, our hearing, our taste, and our smell. I don't get to exercise my smell or my taste as often as I like. So after having done this episode and having this discussion with you guys, I think I'm going to start challenging myself to do these PQ reps along with my taste and my smell sensory muscles to really have a well-rounded positive intelligence mindset. But like I said, my challenge to you is to do this for 21 days straight, to just throughout your day be constantly aware for 10 seconds at a time, completely immersed in a sensation, whether it's sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. Right now I hear the birds chirping as I'm recording this. I can just take 10 seconds and be completely immersed in the songs of the birds chirping back and forth. Those of you who are listening to it on podcasts, I do have a YouTube video where I stopped and I listened on YouTube, so it makes a little more sense. If you want, the link for the YouTube will be in the show notes as well. But yeah, that's my challenge to you. Increase your positive mindset, increase your your positive quotient, your positive intelligence by weakening your saboteurs, by acknowledging your saboteur, by strengthening your sage, and by doing 100 plus PQ reps a day for 21 days straight. Simple as that. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show, for being listeners of the Wake Up with Wonder podcast. I'm happy to have you here. If you found value in today's episode, share it with a friend. There might be someone out there like myself who is highly focused on their emotional intelligence, on their EQ, and they might have evolved to a place where their relationships, their connections are going well and thriving, but now they need to thrive in their business. They need to thrive in their production levels. And this positive intelligence is going to allow them to live in a thriving mindset. Like I said, to tap into those 5 positive superpowers in our mind. So please share this with a friend. If you haven't already, hit subscribe on iTunes, hit subscribe on YouTube, so that way you get updates to every single episode. Upcoming this Friday, I'm going to be releasing our Friendly Friday interview. It's a sit-down 1-hour conversation with Mr. Daniel Levin, the author of The Mosaic. And I believe it's a perfect episode for the time that our world is in right now. We talk about the power of listening. We talk about how listening in itself is a form of wonder, and how this can truly change and shape our world going forward. So by subscribing on Apple, subscribing on YouTube, you're going to get that interview episode when it's released on Friday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you next week.